Welcome back to Munchausen's Proxy, where we are coming to the end of our run with Season 1 of Syfy's The Ark. As I mentioned in my last review, it will be back for Season 2, and hopefully the writing will get a bit deeper into certain areas that have, until now, been neglected on a show about humanity being forced to flee Mother Earth. Unlike previous episodes, this one is not a quick and dirty review, but a full-on spoiler review in the style that I have used for things like Rings of Power, The Peripheral, and Gotham Knights. Why? Because while it is interesting to cut together trailers for each episode of The Ark, it is both time-consuming as well as less demonstrative of the various points I like to make with these reviews, especially when I give the rundown on my thoughts about the episode. And since this is the season finale, I wanted more versatility in making those points for this review. Because while I like this finale very much, as I have much of the season, it was not without issues that jumped out at someone who pays attention and has more useless knowledge floating around his head than is practical. So let's begin this episode 12 spoiler review of The Ark with a recap of last episode. I just finished that review, and I will link it in the description if you missed it. Last episode, Garnet rescued the prisoners Kelly and ARC-15 took, with Angus's help, but had to leave behind Lane the asshole because of the utterly retarded design of ARC-15. We also had Bryce dying of maybe Clampkin's disease, despite the fact that they injected him with the cure ARC-15 was developing. Oh, and Ava arranged for Maddox to blow up her own weapon against other ships, evening the playing field a little bit. This episode started with Alicia running through the halls to greet Angus with an overly exuberant hug when they all get back to Ark-1, surprising him a bit. She tries to cover up by including the others in her happiness to see them. Garnet has Trust taken back to their lockup, and when she asks about Bryce, she is told he is in medbay. She correctly guesses the cure did not work. Felix then asks about Lane, and she shares a grim look with Angus, which is when we see Angus being escorted through the ARC-15 halls by three of the most retarded guards in human history. He convinces them to undo his cuffs, because after all, they're putting him in a brig. Where's he going to go? And he takes out all three guys with ease, but not before one of them sounds the alarm, causing him to run. In medbay, Bryce wakes up with Ava at his bedside. Doc comes up to the bed and he asks what happened. They all look depressed and he guesses the cure didn't work. Doc tells him that she followed all of ARC-15's research and it should have worked. He tries to yank out his IV angrily, and they stop him. Lane, meanwhile, runs around a corner on ARC-15 and ducks back after seeing two guards at the next intersection. He psychs himself up to take them on, but when he gets ready to go, there are three more, and he reverses course. And these guys must have the worst peripheral vision of any human I have ever come across, not to have seen him out of the corner of their eyes. When Lane calls Ark-1, Garnet and Felix are shocked to hear from him. She asks if he is alright, and he tells her that he promised never to lie to her again. When asked if he can hide until they come get him, he says no. Charge your FTL and get out of there. When she objects, pointing out ARC-15 will just follow, he tells her not if he destroys their FTL. Back in medbay, Doc is trying to figure out what she did wrong with Alicia negating that line of thought, reminding her that she checked all of her work and it was done right. Then Doc notices that the vial of spider venom that they milked has changed into a white crystalline substance. She looks up the spider on the computer and realizes the venom decays on contact with helium. Alicia, the life support officer, tells her that the CO2 scrubbers produce a small amount of helium in the process of keeping the air breathable. Doc surmises that they need to let the spiders bite Bryce directly for the cure to work. Bryce is not happy with this line of thinking, objecting rather strenuously while Ava laughs her ass off at his reaction to letting the spiders touch him. Doc injects the other two components into him and then tells him to stick his hand into the box of spiders, telling him it should cure him. He is not thrilled. As his hand goes into the box, Doc gets the heebie-jeebies and can't look herself. Bryce is a bit indignant about it all, and Alicia, who had a pet tarantula back on Earth, thinks it's cute that the spiders seem to like him as they crawl all over his hand. Since they are not biting, however, she guesses that they need to make the arachnids angry and bangs the box. That does the trick, and after they bite him a few times, Doc tells him he can take it out. Ava is still loving the whole scene, giggling her ass off. On Arc 15, Garnet and Felix are guiding Lane to the engine room. Garnet tells him there should be a 5-man shift working there, but Felix warns him there might be more. Lane smiles and says he will have the element of surprise. He rushes into the room, but there's only one guy in there going about his work until he realizes there is somebody else present. Lane smiles, says hi with a wave, and zaps him with a stun baton. He grabs what looks like a pry bar and smashes the crap out of the FTL drive to the sound of alarms and the engine room door closing. Lane tells them to get out of there now that Maddox can't follow. Then his comm fuzzes out. When they try to get him back, Maddox comes on and tells them that he can't talk right now, but she will be in touch. Which is when we return to Medbay on Arc 1. Bryce tells Ava she needs to prepare herself for the inevitable. The cure is not going to work. She asks why he let the spiders bite him if he did not think it would work. He says it couldn't hurt, and he would face his only fear. Ava wonders why he is afraid of hope. However, hope is not his fear. He is afraid to see the look on her face when they tell him it has not worked. He has been there before. Which is when Doc shows her tablet to Alicia with a kind of shocked look on her face, and they both go to Bryce's bed, warning him tentatively that before they tell him the results, he needs to keep in mind that it is an experimental treatment. He just wants to know how long he has left, but Alicia blurts out that he is cured. Doc cuts in to warn that the disease damaged a few organs and his neurological system, but Alicia interrupts her, saying, "Come on, Doc. It worked." Bryce is shocked, and Ava hugs him, asking him if he's okay. Much crying ensues. On the bridge, Ava comes in crying, and Garnet assumes the worst, but Ava smiles and nods, sending Garnet into tears too. She then calls a meeting of the command council. Bryce comes in with an IV stand in tow. She tells them that now they have a Clampkins cure, they have 2 legs to stand on vis-a-vis their standoff with Maddox, the cure, and Trust's planetary rotation programming. Ava guesses she means to trade for Lane. Garnet agrees and adds sharing the planet, but they have to act before Maddox repairs her weapon. Bryce suggests sticking a gun to Maddox's head the second she steps out of the airlock, but Garnet says no. That is how humanity got to where it is now. Everyone acting like Trust and Maddox. They have to be better. When they contact Maddox, she tells them absolutely not. She will come over there and take what she wants by force. Garnet tells her to stop. Her doctor screwed up, and Arc 1's brilliant doctor figured out the cure and is the only person who can save her. Maddox denies that, starting to defend her doctors, but Garnet cuts her off. Her conditions are releasing Lane and sharing Proxima B. If not, they will simply leave her there with an incurable disease, and Arc 1 will zip out on their FTL. Maddox reluctantly agrees, and Garnet tells her they will send a shuttle for her. When the communications cut, Maddox turns to Lane and asks how that woman will double-cross them. Lane looks at her with a slightly pitying expression and says she won't. In the council room, Bryce asks Garnett how that woman will double-cross them. Garnett replies with, "Let's hope she doesn't." The shuttle is sent over and Garnett goes to Trust, telling him the deal, including speeding up the planet's rotation. With a smirk, he asks if she really thinks he will share Proxima B with that woman. She asks why he thinks that's so funny, and he replies because she made the deal without consulting him. She asks him why she would consult him. He has no say in the matter. He concedes that, but points out he has leverage, his knowledge of the programming. He wants his freedom, and begins to ask for more, but Garnett just laughs, telling him he has zero power on Arc 1. She explains he can either share the program with Maddox, or she can give him to Maddox. He counters by asking her to at least free Cat. When Garnett asks why he cares, he tells her that he talked her into mutiny. She would not have done it otherwise. She considers it, telling him that at least Cat regrets her actions and helped them to figure out what Maddox was up to. He then requests better living conditions for himself, saying it is embarrassing to be escorted to the bathroom every day. He snarkily points out that at least Arc 15 built a proper brig. She smirks at him, reminding him that he designed Arc 1, and maybe he should have thought of that before they left Earth. On Arc 15, Lane and Maddox are walking through the halls to the shuttle tube. Waiting at the hatch are a bunch of guards with weapons. Lane protests, and Maddox says he was the one that said Garnett was sincere. When he reiterates that she is, she tells him that she needs the cure and has no intention of sharing Proxima B. Lane looks at her scornfully, telling her that, for a genius, she really is an idiot. Maddox replies that if Garnett is foolish enough to invite her to Arc 1, she would be a fool not to take advantage of that. He asks her whether she wants to live or destroy Arc 1, because she can't do both. Maddox thinks Garnett will give her whatever she wants with a gun to her head. Lane scoffs, telling her Garnett will prepare for a double cross. The only way to get what she wants is to honor the deal. On Arc 1, Garnett, Bryce, Felix, and an entire security team are standing over the hatch, Bryce wishing they had more than cattle prods and a hammer. Lane comes through the hatch and they lunge, only to come up short when he yells, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa!" Maddox comes up after him. Garnett asks her to put her hands up, and she is a little indignant over being searched. Garnett tells her the road to Detente is a rocky one, and Maddox scoffs back. When Garnett asks her what she would call it, Maddox tells her to give her the cure first, and then they will see. Garnett then sends Felix down into the shuttle to clear it. Lane thanks her for not leaving him, and she hugs him with a smile. Bryce gets in on the hug, and Maddox is shocked at the culture difference between the two ships. Felix comes back up with a stowaway. Kelly. Garnett and Bryce are pissed. Garnett tells Maddox that the deal is off for her bringing a woman who murdered their crewmates. Maddox turns and slaps the out of Kelly, asking what she was thinking. Kelly apologizes, saying she came because she wanted to be with her if she is dying. Maddox apologizes for her daughter, which shocks Garnett. She tells Maddox this is the last surprise she will tolerate, and if Kelly wants to be with her, there are conditions. Then we see Kelly walking through the halls with zip ties on, with security guards around her. Crew of the Arc 1 watch them pass, with Angus hiding in the back of the crowd with a worried/angry face on. In medbay, Doc injects Maddox with the cure components as Maddox protests this idea of getting bitten by the spiders. Doc assures her that, though it is unorthodox, it will work, and they don't have time to work up a preservative for the venom to prevent its decay. Her and her daughter suggest it is a trap. Bryce chimes in that he is proof, showing her the bites. She is still skeptical, but Garnett tells her if she wanted to kill her, she would have just spaced her. That convinces Maddox, and she thrusts her hand into the box as Bryce is trying to ease her into it, shocking him. Kelly gets suspiciously squeamish, and Mom wonders what happened to moral support. She asks to go to the bathroom to hurl, and Garnett nods to Felix's deputy to take her. Maddox scornfully says that she clearly takes after her father, as Kelly is let out. Kelly is making like she is going to be sick and thanking the deputy, but Griff just tells her the bathroom is around the corner. Predictably, Kelly hits her when she tries to put her hand on Kelly's back, then zapping her with her own stun rod. Then she gets her psycho look on her face and probably goes to find Angus and kill him. Back in medbay, Doc tells Maddox she is cured. Maddox tears up, wondering that she is not going to die. She tells Garnett that as soon as her doctors confirm the prognosis, she will share the planet. Which is when Felix comes in, to inform Garnett that Kelly attacked Griff. He then questions Maddox about what she is planning. Maddox asks where the farm boy is. Said farm boy is with his plants, telling them he missed them and that they would not like ARC-15. Kelly comes in and zaps him before climbing on top of him to strangle him while ranting about him lying to her about liking her, but actually wanting to be with the stupid people on ARC-1 and the stupid plants. Alicia comes in and whacks her on the head with a shovel just as he is about to block out, saying his plants are not stupid. After helping him up, she asks him if she hit her that hard, which is when Mom and Felix come in. Maddox demands to know what happened to her daughter, who is lying in the dirt with blood pooling by her head. Alicia says it was an accident, that Kelly was, but Angus takes the blame. Maddox glares at him and tells him that if they did not just save her life, it would have a very different outcome. The door on Trust's cell opens, and he tells whoever it is he's not hungry. Just leave the gruel in the corner. But it is Kat, looking smoking hot, and telling him that she is not the help. He tells her that he thought he would never see her again. She thanks him, telling him she understands that she has him to thank for her freedom. He demurs, saying it is the least he could do since he got her in trouble. He inquires about any memorial held for his wife, but Kat shakes her head, reminding him that she did lead a mutiny. Then they hear a banging on the door. She hugs him and tells him it's time to go, and he goes in for a kiss. She rebuffs him with a shocked look on her face, asking him if he's out of his mind. His wife just died. He apologizes, saying he is desperate for human contact. She understands, but tells him he is friend-zoned for now. In medbay, Doc tells Maddox that Kelly is bleeding in her brain, but she does not have the facilities for brain surgery. Maddox tells her that ARC-15 does, and, with Garnett's permission, she will take her back there. Doc tells her she hopes Kelly recovers, but that even with surgery it is a long shot. Maddox smiles, telling her they said the same thing about Clampkins, following the gurney out. In the halls, Garnett asks her if they still have a deal. Maddox retorts that Garnett and her people destroyed her weapon, her FTL, and put her daughter in a coma. Felix fires back, asking how many of their people did Kelly kill, which brings her up short. Garnett asks that they at least try to coexist as friends without any more killings. Maddox tells her that despite what she might have heard, she does keep her deals. If Garnett can get Trust to speed up the planet, she will agree to share it, but they will never be friends. Angus finds Alicia on the observation deck, scowling at her tablet as she is trying to use the sensors to penetrate the atmosphere. When she sees him, she tells him the data from Proxima B doesn't make sense. The water on the dark side is not frozen. Angus suggests it has a higher salinity. She thanks him, and then he thanks her for saving him, and then she thanks him for covering for her, and then he apologizes for ever trusting Kelly. They laugh about it and then laugh some more when they both realize their first kisses were with murderers. Alicia suggests that they make their next kisses more memorable. And instead of kissing like normal people, awkwardness ensues. Angus tries to break it up by asking to see more about Proxima B. This scene was written by a lunatic. Meanwhile, Bryce and Ava are walking through the agricultural dome hand in hand. Bryce tells her that he needs to start being a little nicer to Plant Boy. He did a good job. Ava suggests he could start by using his real name. He tells her that might be going a bit too far. She wonders where he is, and Bryce tells her that he asked Angus for a little alone time. She asks if it is a date, and he replies that he must be doing it wrong if she has to ask. Then she gets a serious look on her face, and he asks what is wrong. She tells him she has a lot on her mind. He tells her that they made friends with the crazy lady and cured clampkins. She replies that a lot could still go wrong. When he asks who is afraid of Hope now, she tells him that the ship is very fragile. He counters with his confidence that if anyone can keep it together, Alicia can. She smacks him with a smile and they kiss. Later, Garnet asks how the biodome was and he tells her very nice. Lane stops them in the hall and asks them if he can come back to the bridge. She wonders why he couldn't, since he did more than enough to earn his rank back. He says he can take it back on one condition. Bryce has to call her Captain Garnet, since it is what he prefers to call her, and she defers. On the bridge, Trust explains his machines that Maddox has already deployed on the planet. Now, his finger must only have been dislocated last episode, because in this one it is not even bandaged or splinted. Alicia asks if the machines will make a self-sustaining rotation, and he says yes. Garnet makes sure he is positive about that, and he tells her he has never been more sure of anything. She tells him to turn it on. He suggests putting a little distance between Arc 15 and them in case fluctuating gravity messes with the ships. Bryce moves them a little further out from the planet, and Trust turns on the machines. When nothing seems to happen, he warns them to wait. It takes time. Which is when Maddox calls, demanding to know what she has done. When Garnet asks what she means, Maddox simply replies that she knew Garnet would double-cross her. Alicia notes that Arc 15 is moving closer to the planet, and Garnet warns Maddox to move away. She shoots back that she isn't doing anything. They are. Trust is smirking, and Garnet demands to know what he did. Alicia figures out that he only turned on one of the machines and focused it on Arc 15, dragging the ship down to the surface. Bryce asks how he could do that, and Trust says he doesn't see the problem. Once Arc 15 crashes, he will spin up Proxima B and they will have the planet to themselves. Everybody wins. Garnet wonders that he has honestly convinced himself that he is the good guy in the scenario. He retorts that Maddox and her daughter were responsible for his wife's death. There was no way he would share Proxima with them. Never mind let them live. Maddox says she knew they would double-cross her, but did not think they would kill all of her people. There are innocent people on her ship. Bryce asks Trust if he is really going to kill 400 people. Trust merely asks how many of their crew did she kill. Bryce says her crew are innocent, and he shoots back that her crew chose to follow Maddox, and that makes them complicit. Garnet points out that Arc 15 represents at least half of what is left of humanity. He just asks if there are more than 150 people on Arc 1, and when she says yes, he tells her that since they instituted a genetic diversity protocol, that is more than enough to restart the human race. Lane snorts, shocked at his callousness. Garnet calls him sick before trying to get Arc 15 back on the comms. Ava tells her that the electromagnetic field knocked out some of their systems, including comms. Trust grins and Garnet yells for him to wipe the stupid smile off of his face and stop this now. He replies that even if he wanted to, which he doesn't, he can't. He would have to transmit the shutdown to Proxima, and they are too far out. Bryce realizes that is why he had them move farther away. Garnet asks if they could boost the signal, but Ava tells her not in time. Lane offers to go in a shuttle. It would only risk one life. Ava nixes that idea. The shuttle is too small. It would get pulled down even faster. Alicia figures they would have to move Arc 1 into a lower orbit and transmit the code just before their systems get knocked out too, hoping it shuts down in time to pull out of orbit. Garnet frames the choices of risking all of humanity or letting the Arc-15 go down. She asks Lane his thoughts, and he says her gut has been right all along. She orders the ship to go to the rescue over Trust's objections, earning him another punch from Bryce before Felix can grab him, saying that never gets old. They send the command right before they hit their own system shutdown. A couple of seconds later, the machines on the planet power down and their systems come on, to the cheers of the bridge crew. Bryce tells them to chill out until they get out of their descending orbit. Garnet calls Arc-15 to get out of there, and both ships pull up from the atmosphere. She calls them to find out how they are doing, and Maddox replies that they are shaken, but alright. And she has so many questions. Garnet replies that she can sum up the answers by saying William Trust is a worthless piece of excrement. Maddox agrees that that answer will do. She then informs her that if the situation were reversed, she would have let them die. Garnet laughs and says, "I know." Maddox says, "You know how I said we could never be friends?" When Garnet says yeah, she continues, "I think I was wrong. And I am never wrong." Later, Felix wonders what the new truce with Maddox means. Lane counts off the things she did to them and Arc 3, but Garnet tells them she is not saying it will be easy. For now, just take the win. Trust chimes in with his opinion that any outcome where Maddox lives is not a win. Bryce tells him to shut up and get back to the science. He announces that his programming is complete, and Alicia agrees, having checked it, and it should be good to go. Alicia offers him the chance to start it up, and while he is giving a long-winded and arrogant thank you, Garnet comes in and gives the honor to Alicia. It is her turn. The machines turn on and start functioning, turning the planet. Garnet thanks Trust, and he guesses correctly that he is now on his way back to his cell. As the planet rotates, Bryce notices something wrong, and Alicia starts having a panic fit, berating herself for not figuring it out sooner. Her strange readings from Proxima earlier with Angus meant that the water isn't water, it is liquid methane, which freezes at a lower temperature. It is igniting on contact with the sunlight, and since the ocean on the other side of the planet is deep, it could detonate the planet when that side gets exposed to the sun. Garnet orders the devices shut down, but it is too late. Alicia tells them that they can't stay, and Garnet asks if the FTL is charged, but it isn't ready and the engines are not at full power. She tells them to inform Arc-15 they need to follow them away from the planet. Bryce tells Ava he needs more speed and to do a double burn, which completely freaks her out. He orders her to do it now or they will all die. Proxima B explodes as they zoom away from the planet just ahead of the blast wave. As they are celebrating their close escape, an alarm goes off and Lane realizes the debris from Proxima B is going to hit them. One of the chunks slams into the fore of the ship, where some idiot decided to put the bridge. Somehow, it misses the bridge. They try to hail medbay and engineering, but neither the doc or Ava are answering. Alicia can't get Angus either, and Garnet guesses nobody is hearing them from the bridge. Lane sees that the damage is aft of the bridge, cutting them off from the rest of the ship. Alicia reports that they are venting oxygen and therefore probably won't survive. That is when Garnet sees Arc 15 approaching and thinks maybe they will. Maddox hails them. She tells them that they took no damage, but Arc 1 looks pretty bad. The bridge crew wonder what she will do when they see the shuttle leave Arc 15. Maddox says she is sending rescue teams and medical personnel. Garnet thanks her, but Maddox says, for what? She owes them. And that is how Season 1 ends. Before I comment on the season as a whole, let me comment about this episode. Because while I liked it overall, it had issues of a mostly scientific nature. Let's start with the whole Alicia Angus thing. Writers, you are dragging that thing out to a ridiculous degree. And it was made even more so in that scene on the observation deck. There were other problems with that scene that I will touch on in a moment, but the Alicia Angus thing was obvious from the first episode. But they kept throwing love triangles with psychos to muddy the waters. And given the fact that humanity is seriously screwed, love triangles is not what they would be looking for. They would be looking for someone to start repopulating, especially two geniuses, one of whom is the ship's farm boy. Then we have Lane, aka Lieutenant Asshole. One of the best performances in this show, much as I have hated his character at times this season, is Reese Ritchie as Lieutenant Spencer Lane. His character arc this season has been extremely well written and acted. The actor always struck me as familiar, but I could not place him until I looked him up. He was very good in a crap Dwayne Johnson Hercules movie, but largely unmemorable in other things I saw that he was in. However, he has been a standout performer in this series thus far, and this episode capped a very productive season for him and his character. The Ava Bryce storyline has been entertaining, far more so than the Alicia Angus one. Part of that is Alicia started off as one of the most annoying characters on the show, and Angus was not far behind her. Ava, however, is probably my second standout performance. She has risen to probably the most important person on the ship, if only because she is the only one keeping it a ship rather than a hunk of space junk floating in the spatial abyss. Bryce is a decent character also, and their evolving relationship has been at times amusing and at times predictable, especially vis-a-vis his illness. As soon as we were let in on his diagnosis, I was sure of two things. He and Ava would wind up together, and they would find a cure/treatment by season's end. Both wound up being true. Now, given how the season ended, that may or may not continue. We will have to see. And while it was a very predictable storyline, it was written in a well enough fashion as to keep it entertaining throughout, especially during the coup episodes. Speaking of Bryce's illness, I have been less impressed with the actress who plays Doc. Shalini Paris as Dr. Sanjivni Kabir has no range. Or at least not much of one. Nearly from the beginning, she has looked like she is in an entirely different genre series than the rest of the cast. They are all in a sci-fi show, and she constantly looks like she is waiting for the monster from a horror movie to pop out and chase her around the ship. Now, I know the defenders of her would remind me that she was chasing the meth dragon for half the season and trying to kick it the rest. And that would be a point if there was any other expression or emotion she showed other than shock face all the time. I mean, besides the 2 or 3 times she cried, either because Felix caught her at her habit or because he was trying to buck her up during recovery. She has her moments of not being off, and she is not in the story enough to have come up in my past reviews. However, she was front and center this week, and her performance was a noticeable drag on the episode. I would have believed the actress playing Alicia more as the Doctor than I did Paris, especially during the workup of the cure for Bryce and Maddox and the scenes in the medbay with them. Then we come to the helpful stuntmen in this episode. If you missed them, or are wondering what I am talking about, then you missed their stellar performance as walking meat puppets when Lane easily convinced them to take his restraints off and then obligingly allows him to beat the shit out of them. It is almost clownish. That has been a big problem in this series throughout, and it was noticeable in the last 2 episodes especially. These are supposed to be trained security personnel, and yet they get thrown around by skinny women and shortish men as if they were stuffed dummies. Syfy obviously did not spend much money on either training or stunt coordination / choreography in this show. Hopefully with a season 2 order, it gets better and more believable. Because I didn't. Not the last episode with Garnett, and not this episode with Lane. I have to say the actress playing Maddox is also pretty good. The writing and directing for her is a bit choppy, but that is probably because she has not had time to grow into the role like the other actors on this show have. Elena Stupianen as Evelyn Maddox has done pissed off, cold, ruthless, and cunning bitch very well. But those expressions still seem to be the ones she uses when she tries out other emotions. It will be interesting to see if the truce Garnett worked out with her over the course of this episode will stick, and what they will wind up doing with Trust. I would not be surprised to find him a casualty of this finale, to be honest. His purpose is pretty well served now, and there's little left for him to do in this storyline unless they just keep him around to irritate Maddox. And if that is the case, she will just whack his ass. Paul Murray did a serviceable job playing him throughout the latter half of this season. His performance in the finale was especially good as he went full-on megalomaniac monster as he tried to kill Maddox and everyone aboard Arc 15. Samantha Glasner, however, the daughter of one of the show creators, Jonathan Glasner, still sucks as Kelly in this episode. I didn't think that would be otherwise. She was uncredited before this show, meaning the only reason she is on it is because her daddy got her the part. Her IMDb page claims she studied acting in both North America and Europe, but to believe that, I would need to see a report card and the credentials of the people grading her. She was terrible. Not in an evil character way. Those can sometimes be the best characters in a production. Everyone can name a dozen good villains who are full-on evil or psychotic without breaking a sweat. No, hers was just a bad performance. Now, I don't know if that was because nobody wanted to criticize Daddy's little girl, or if Daddy himself was unable to see how bad she was. Either way, she was no better in this episode, and I was really hoping Alicia killed her when she whacked her over the head with the shovel after the crazy bitch tried strangling Angus. Not that I would have cared if Angus croaked beyond the fact that Arc 1 and Arc 15 kinda need him going forward. He is the plant whisperer, and they will need that if humanity wants to survive. Then we have Garnett. I understand her whole I am humble and don't want to look like I am looking for a promotion shtick this season. I do. But as soon as Bryce tried to muscle her out because she is a clone, the council should have made it formal that she is captain. They didn't, and it allowed the crew to fall prey to the Whisper campaign Trust and his lackeys employed during the mutiny. And after the mutiny, the council should definitely have made her captain. The last few episodes made her position far more perilous in dealing with Arc 15 and a person like Maddox. Maddox would have a hell of a lot more respect for someone everyone is calling Captain Garnett than one everyone is calling Lieutenant Garnett. Military chains of command exist for a reason. When the entire officer corps above Garnett croaks, she is automatically acting captain. And given there are no authorities to contact to debate whether she should be captain or not, she would be the de facto captain as she has been this entire season. So the writers need to stop playing around with it. It is just dumb. In addition, human physics is still a thing as well. I understand the lazy writing of Hollywood thinks you can just utter the phrase enhanced clone DNA to cover whatever they dream up that is complete bullshit, like a 125-pound woman throwing around 300-pound muscle men. However, as mentioned before, the fight scenes with Garnett were ridiculous, especially since we see her in short sleeves and there is almost no muscle definition on her. She is a rail. If you are trying to pass that off, you need the actress to do at least a little bulking up. Hollywood actresses are lazy in this regard. Actors bulk up to play superheroes and other action roles all the time. But actresses half-ass their way through such roles, expecting the ever-obliging stunt department to cover up for the fact that they would shatter their knuckles if they attempted to hit a piece of rice paper. Get Christy Burke a bloody trainer before the start of shooting for season 2, please. That pretty much covers the characters I wanted to talk about. So we come to the mistakes and bad parts. Since some of these have been systemic throughout the show, I will talk about those as well as the problems that only apply to the finale, and maybe the episode before that. Let's start with one that bothered me from the beginning of episode 1. I don't recall whether I talked about it, but I probably ignored it in lieu of more flagrant issues with the premiere. Namely, the ship's design. The entire ship design. It is mildly idiotic in a number of ways, all of which could have been mitigated if they consulted engineers or astrophysicists or even some hard science fiction writers like David Weber. First, they put the bridge and the entire command infrastructure at the front of the ship like you would for an aircraft. Idiotic. In space, you do not need a bridge crew to have a window. That is what cameras and sensors all around the hull are for. Distance in astronomical terms are so vast that the naked eye simply won't do. So the windows are useless. Then there is the likelihood of getting hit by something in space, as happened twice in this season. One intentional and one not. They were merely lucky that everyone on the bridge had plot armor in this finale. Everyone on the bridge should be dead. And that would decapitate the rest of the leadership cadre for Arc 1 except Ava and Angus, neither of whom are command material. Speaking of command material, who thought it was a good idea to not only bunk all of the command staff together in hibernation, but to put the hibernation pods on the outside of the hull in the spinning sections? Command staff, at the very least, if not the entire crew, should have been housed in interior spaces protected from impacts to the outer hull. As a matter of fact, the ideal design is everything that is critical: bridge, crew hibernation spaces, life support, engineering should all have been protected by the mass of the hull, decreasing the likelihood random micrometeor strikes or hypothetical enemy action would do to the ship what happened in episode 1. And what the hell was the purpose of the spinning sections to begin with? If they discovered artificial gravity, spinning parts of the ship becomes useless. The only reason to have spinning sections of a spacecraft is to create centrifugal force that gives you the illusion of gravity, thereby allowing you to maintain muscle mass on long-haul spaceflight. For a good example of this, watch The Martian with Matt Damon. Since the entire ship is not doing that but still has gravity in sections like the bridge, we can assume Earthlings discovered artificial gravity before decamping from the hell planet it was becoming. Then we come to the actual crew of the ship. I understand the crew was mixed military GSA members and civilians. However, at no point in this show did that really come across except to say that the command staff existed but was wiped out in the first episode, and the 3 lieutenants are GSA. None of them acted like they belonged to a military organization. If they did, that point I raised earlier about Captain Garnett versus Lieutenant Garnett would have been moot because she would automatically have been installed as captain if she had longer in grade than the other 2, as she acted at the outset. And they could not have been the only surviving members of the military. Where were all of the sergeants or petty officers? And what kind of military organization helps build ships going anywhere and does not build a brig? Unless you want to tell me the entire crew were psychologically screened for pacifists, a brig would be necessary, because anytime you get 2 or more humans together in a confined space, there is the possibility of trouble. Add in the stress of a ship that was hit/attacked and the leadership killed with survival only a grim possibility, and you need a brig. Anyone planning space missions who goes into it thinking nothing will go wrong needs to back the hell away before they get somebody killed. The fact that they were planning a forced evacuation of Earth and the colonization of distant exoplanets that they had not properly surveyed beforehand and did not think things would go wrong is insane. Then we come to the various science mistakes being made throughout the show. I have touched on them as the season went along, but any attempt at scientific realism went out the window with the last few episodes. There are 2 huge ones I want to talk about, because the last few episodes revolved around them, and they are combined. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that Proxima b being an eyeball planet is real, and would give settlers the problem of one side being too cold for settlement, and the other too hot because only one side ever faces the sun. Let's just go with it. Now, Maddox's solution is to place gravitic drivers around the equator to spin up the planet so it gets even sunlight all around the planet. Fine, that sounds like a workable solution. However, that she has nobody on her entire ship who can come up with the programming for it and needs William Trust to do it does not pass the sniff test. Especially since I am sure Arc 1 had at least one other besides Trust in Alicia, given she was the one checking his work. Then there is the problem of geography on Proxima b. If all of the landmass is clustered on one side, what the hell were they putting the gravitic drivers on, where there was no land? Especially since Alicia said the ocean on the far side of Proxima b was really deep. And since they were placing them where there was ocean, how the hell did they miss that the ocean was not water, but liquid methane? That is kind of noticeable, even with the technology we have now. Never mind what would be available a century from now. For instance, we can tell today, and have been able to for years, that the liquid on the Saturn moon Titan is liquid methane and ethane. How did both Arc 1 and Arc 15 sit in orbit for quite some time, even more so on the part of Arc 15, and not notice the water wasn't water? That is kind of an important feature of finding habitable exoplanets. The first thing you do in going into a new planet is check out the atmosphere, any liquid you find, and what the climate might be like. At the very least, Angus would have wanted to know what kind of water he would have to work with on Proxima b for agriculture. I am sure a similar person existed on Arc 15 who would want the same information. Nothing about that is believable, especially given the scientific makeup of the crew both ships would have included. Then we have the grand finale of the last episode, then detonating Proxima B. Let's ignore the idea that they would miss that the planet is literally overflowing with methane and go with it. Once the methane starts flaming, they should have done all in their power to haul ass out of there and not stopped until the blast wave and the debris field was in the rearview mirror. Blast waves dissipate, but they don't just stop. The same with debris fields. The fact that they managed to get hit in the fore section of the ship just aft of the bridge is just silly. The only way that could have happened was if they sped out of orbit, stopped, and turned so that big chunk of Proxima B could slam into them from that trajectory. The idea that Arc 15 could come through it without any damage is also silly, but that is the trend with this finale. Now, don't get me wrong, I did like this finale. However, I had to turn my brain off to get through its mistakes. This show got better as the season wore on, and the actors got more comfortable with the people they were portraying. The storyline was engaging, crap characters like Kelly and Mrs. Trust notwithstanding. The idea of a massive effort to get humanity into the stars as quickly as possible because the planet is going to hell is intriguing. There were good characters who only got better the longer the season ran. And the final showdown between Arc 1 and Arc 15 was satisfying, while also setting up a fascinating merging of efforts between the two ships in order to help humanity go on existing as they figure out what the hell they do now that they have ruined yet another planet. I am glad Syfy saw fit to renew this one for another season, especially since they do not do nearly as many scripted shows as they used to, settling for reality shows, wrestling, and reruns to bring in the viewers. The ratings it receives on Syfy make it Syfy's second most watched show behind Resident Alien, which is far and away its best show in the ratings. From its low in episode 9 at 339,000, it jumped back up to 463,000 for the finale, losing a little over 100,000 from the premiere. While I have noted that is not great for most mainstream networks, Syfy seems to have given up on scripted television over the last several years. It used to be a channel that sought to bring imaginative science fiction to the entertainment media market, but NBC Universal, its parent company, has put less and less money behind the network, and some of that has shown in the Ark in its less than stellar CGI, and some of its cast. I would give the Ark Season 1 an overall B-, mainly taking points away for bad acting in a couple of characters, the uninspired CGI, and the many science mistakes on a science fiction show. Some of that is fixable, but some of it they will be stuck with for the rest of the show's run. If the writing keeps up and tightens up, the characters continue to improve, and a little more effort goes into the CGI, this could turn into a really good show. However, I am realistic about that, given its home is Syfy. I don't know why NBC Universal has gone in the direction they have with Syfy, but it has not been good for those occasional shows that come along on the channel that are worth keeping. I think I will end this here. Gotham Knights was not on this week for some reason, so that is why that was not posted. The next Gotham Knights will be in a couple of days, and I might have something else up before then, so keep a watch out for that. If you like what I do here, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and comment down below. I appreciate it all. Until then, tschüss.